So many of you have heard of James Van Praagh. He's an American author, producer, and television personality who describes himself as a clairvoyant and spiritual medium. He's written numerous books, including the New York Times bestseller Talking to Heaven. He also was the co-executive producer of the CBS primetime series Ghost Whisperer. We are delighted to have James Van Praagh on our show, The Intentional Spirit. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Temple.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
And most importantly, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you on behalf of Spirit. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a surrender, isn't it?
It's a surrender, complete surrender.
We're just really here to serve.
Exactly right. Serve humankind. Yeah.
You know, with your gifts, I know that there's a story about you that you shared with your mom.
Yes.
That you actually told her, you know, yes, I had a good night's rest, and there were lights all in the room. And,
yes.
You know, and your mom kind of says to you, yeah, those are your angels.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people aren't that fortunate because
Sure.
they're told, don't even go there. Let's get you to church more.
Right. Very true.
Because that's something of the devil.
Right.
With you being so validated so early, did the path just continue from there?
Well, yeah, for me as a child, and people what you're referring to, when I was saying prayers with my mother before going to sleep, I would see these lights and beings at the end of the bed, and I did ask her, who are those people? And she said, those are God's angels. They'll always take care of you. You have nothing to fear. And that to me, as a child, it was encouraging. It was okay. I didn't have any judgment or opinion on it because as a child I was just open to the experiences, as every child is, and children measure their world by their experiences. They don't know any better. Yeah. So to me that was kind of very natural and normal, and it was great that my mother validated this. I'm sure that if it wasn't that way, that she didn't validate it, I might not be here today in this role. But yeah, it was reassuring, but it also shows me that we pick our parents and our family before we come back into this world. I think as soul groups, we pick those people who will be in our family and who are going to be significant in our lives.
You had the right tribe, so we say.
The right tribe.
That could just support you from day one.
Yeah.
How fortunate.
Yeah, and I think, of course, I was meant to do this work. When I was in my 20s, early 20s, I moved to California from New York to be a sitcom writer because I thought I was funny, and I wanted to make a living from it.
You know what, you are.
So thank you. So I have a degree in broadcasting, actually, from San Francisco State. And it was funny because then I moved to LA to pursue this and how the spirit world works, very, very different ways and roads in and out. And I ended up seeing a medium. I went with a friend of mine to see this man named Brian Hurst, a British medium. I didn't know what a medium was. And I just went to humor her. I said, okay, I'll go along with you. And the first thing he said to me when I walked in the room, he said, you're a medium, and you're going to help change the consciousness of the planet. And I said, wow. I just want to be a sitcom writer. I don't want to change the consciousness of the planet.
Right.
But 35 years ago now, I look back, and that's happened. I've helped to change the shift, if you will, of people's ideas of life after death, of spirituality in respect to passing on and what death is about, and taking away the illusions and making it real, I guess you could say. I'm fortunate to be able to be one of the ones that have helped doing that.
Well, you are the trailblazer.
Yeah.
At least that's the way we see you, as the person that actually, you know, made it everyday conversation.
Yeah.
And made it that it's okay to talk about this, because that's really ultimately the whole idea of, for example, Jesus's message.
Right.
Exactly. Buddha's message, but Jesus was just saying, I'm right over here.
Exactly.
I didn't really leave. I'm just right here, and
exactly.
And it was made into something else.
Right.
And you're here to put the practicality on. This was really what it was about.
It's a reality.
And that's really what salvation is.
Yeah.
It's really the opportunity to save yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. And be yourself.
And to be yourself. Yeah. And to understand that no matter what, your life is eternal. I love what you said last night about we're human beings here to express as a soul.
Right, so we're souls having a human experience.
Souls having a human experience.
And that's all it is. I mean, we are souls first and foremost, and the human condition is temporary. And so as souls, we've been through many, many lifetimes. We live in many spaces and places outside this galaxy. There are millions and billions of stars and systems, and this is just one of so many. And we're a soul, so a soul is made of pure love, pure light. And we get so caught up sometimes in the human condition that we think we're the humans, but we're not. We're the souls having a human experience. And that's important to know, and that's important to live from that perspective. Because if we get more caught up in the human, we get caught up in the judgments. And judgment is fear-based, as we know. So we have to be very careful of perspective and understanding who we truly are. Yeah.
I know that through the years for myself, being a sensitive and an intuitive, there were times I just really wanted to resist. I definitely went through that saboteur place of, oh, isn't this great? I'm grateful to have these gifts. But the realism is that it's not always easy, because you're picking up things that people, I used to think they just weren't being truthful.
Right.
You know, because I could pick up something from them, and they would say yes to me when they really meant no. Or it would be very shaded.
And confusing to you.
And very confusing to me. And I used to think that it's because they weren't telling the truth. And now I know they're not even aware of that truth at times. It's some kind of future seeing and stuff like that.
It's very true.
So it was at times challenging, still can be.
Sure.
You know?
Sure, of course.
How do you sit with all that? Because you are so in tune. How did you address that, or did you?
You know, this is really interesting, because coming back to this lifetime, and as a child, I was always kind of bullied as a kid, and made fun of, maybe my height or whatever it was. And it was really interesting, because I went to a healer once, and he didn't know who I was at all. And I went to the hotel room, we was doing a session. He opens up the door and he said, "Oh, thank God, a healer working on a healer, very good." And I said, "Oh, this is interesting." And I sat down and he did this healing with me, but he also spoke to me about certain things. And he said, "The reason why you came back a stature so short in this lifetime, because you came with a lot of power. And if you're too tall, you'd intimidate people and they wouldn't listen to your message. And that's why you came back that way." And ever since I was a child, I've always had a sense of myself. I just knew who I was in a way, and I didn't look to other people to validate me, which is really, I think I came in that way. And that made a big difference. And as I've gotten older and I've done the work, you know, one of the themes which I talk about all the time, and I try to teach people and inspire them with, is what other people think of you is none of your business.
Absolutely.
Because nobody knows you better than you know yourself. And no one can love you more than you can love yourself. And I live by that, and that's a freedom. When you can help people that liberate, wow, because so many people are caught up on what other people think of them, and they make their lives based on other people's opinions. And they don't need to. Just be yourself. So I've always kind of had that sense, and I've also gotten to the point of, you know, everybody has a story. So every human has a background, has a story, and who am I to judge another story? What am I learning from them? You know, it's kind of like that perspective I take now, because it's much more, I don't know, natural to me. It seems like the way it should be. Instead of sitting in judgment, just observing and accepting people for who they are.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is interesting as you watch your story. I like to say there's a big difference between the birth story.
Yes.
Who were born to the environment, our first school system, which may have drawn it out of us, may have not. My first grade teacher told me I was never going to amount to anything because I talked too much. Okay. She was a little off. But I can, you know, so there's that birth story, but then there's the sacred creation story of what we go through, the challenges that draw out of us our ability to be, our freedom to feel fine in our own inner power, whatever that may be. But with your story, it's so evident. Every time there was time for validation, the person or the angel in person form, however one wants to put it, was like right there and said, "No, this is why you're short. Oh no, this is why you see the light."
Yeah. I grew up with in a family, definitely, you know, a typical family from New York City, or Queens, New York, and it was, of course, dysfunctional family, as most families tend to be. And you know, we pick out our families before we come back. And I picked a mother who had an addiction to alcohol, and it forced me. She was never really there, and it forced me to have a relationship with myself right away, and my sibling, my sister, and myself. And it was really interesting. It built up this confidence because I had to be there for myself. And I remember there was a lady named Connie Leaf who was a neighbor. And really through Connie Leaf, she helped me also to believe in myself. And she said, you know, you're something very special. Whoever you are just a special person, and you're unique. And she didn't know anything really about me. But it's through her value of me and a belief in me that also helped me to believe in myself. And my first book, Talking to Heaven, is dedicated to Connie because she really was, talk about an angel in your life that really inspired you. She was definitely the one that did that at a very young age. So we do have all these beings that come into our lives, teachers, guides, angels, who do inspire us. I think that's a part of our blueprint sometimes, that they're going to be part of our soul blueprint. At age 12, this is going to happen. You meet this person. At age 22, you're going to meet that person. You're going to move here. I think it's all laid out. And I think the more open we are to the possibilities, then the more we'll recognize that, those beautiful beings in our lives, and listen to them, you know, be aware of them. Yeah.
One of the things I love about your work, and I've listened to a number of interviews and then have witnessed you in an audience, is that it's in alignment of, when people think of religiosity, or more importantly in our work, spirituality, because everything is spiritual. Ernest Holmes would say, the founder of Science of Mind, nothing's more spiritual than a ham sandwich.
That's great.
You know, and we have that same kind of sense, is that spirituality it's supposed to be fun.
Exactly.
And I love what you're doing and how you're doing it, in the way that people are so afraid of death.
Exactly.
They don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
They always say, even if somebody, you know, is 120 years old, it was unexpected.
Right.
When it is expected.
Yeah.
Really, with all of us, it's expected. There's such an immense fear of the big moment, the curtain closing, and those kind of things, that to me it's deeply preventing people from living.
Without a doubt.
You know, they're dying while they're alive. And I love what you said last night about that you find it easier to work with dead people than you do working with the living people. How do we break that paradigm, James? I know that you're definitely helping with that, of showing people that, telling them stories and messages.
Well, what I do, go back to the beginning what you were just talking about, when I do a demonstration right in front of people, and one of the first things I do is I break it down in that people who think about death might be very scared or nervous, and the medium up on stage, oh wow, who's this crazy guy, or you know, is it the devil or whatever. So immediately what I do, as you could witness last night, was like, and I was really even keeled last night. I was very kind of contained, because usually I'm much wilder. But when I get on stage,
we want your wild side next time, okay?
So I usually come out and I dance. I usually come out and I make jokes, and people look at me like, what's going on here? And I did that for a very specific reason, and that is to break up the nerves, to break up that fear, their sense of what's going to happen here, and it's like they're unexpected. I want them to have that unexpected sense, and they also immediately can relate to me, because they, wow, this guy's funny, this guy's real, he's not goofy, he's not too weird, he's kind of down to earth. And if they can relate to that, number one, it takes away the fear. Because well, I can relate to this person. This is working here, and then two, they see the genuineness, the reality that I'm real with this work, and then they see the ability, and it brings them along on this journey when we do these messages, and it just shows them that, you know, it's very natural, it's very normal, and really the death is something to look forward to. It's nothing to be scared or fearful of. It's something that's a natural process, that's our home. This is not our home. And I've never had one spirit in 35 years come back and say, well, I miss that body, I miss that disease, really, I miss that physical ailment I had. It's just the opposite. So when we can demonstrate to people that there is no death, they do begin to live life fully. They don't have to worry about death. It's part of this, it's the great escape. It's really something to look forward to. It really is.
That's so powerful. I know when I've worked with people that have fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, arthritic things, or a closed heart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably our number one epidemic, isn't
Yes,
it?
true.
The closed
Very
heart,
true.
the rigid heart.
Very true.
It's always surprising to people to realize that 4 times the amount of people die from heart issues as they do from cancer.
Wow.
But in that space, when there's soul retrieval in the shamanic world, and you're looking for where a person has lost energy in their lives, they're fragmented, and they're not that thriving person that we are designed to be all the time.
Yes.
And that being said, I see a lot of windows of people where it's about someone dying. There's a funeral, there's a memorial, and they've really shut down that aspect of themselves.
Yeah. The other day, a girl in my audience said, that my loved one realized that part of me died with them. And I said, well, yes and no. Part of us, we're connected, so it doesn't really matter. Again, if we could start seeing things from a spiritual perspective or a soul perspective instead of the human perspective. The human perspective, things are over it, and it's black and white, and that's it. As a soul being, we are more outside the body than in the body. As a soul right now, like 20% of us is in the body, 80% is out of the body already. So when they have a relationship of that soul self, and they can recognize that they're much more out of the body, and they're more aware that they're much bigger and immense than just this physical body, it can also change things. It changes their perspective. I think it's just opening them up to the relationship of who they truly are and all the different aspects of themselves. And I think that's part of it. I think it's part of the reason they come back to this journey is for self-realization that all these different parts of their being, and they're all valid. Yeah.
And when you see hundreds of people listening to you and watching your work through someone visiting a loved one, you can kind of feel that energy coming back in the room.
Yes.
You can see some people, you can look at a whole row of people, and some of them are like, I'm somewhat robotic. But all of a sudden you see that there's this essence and there's energy. When we're closed from the pain of quote unquote.
Let me just interrupt by saying something because I want to jump into there because it's a really good point.
Okay.
So when people, a whole row of people, they finally get energetic, I think part of it is that they remember who they are. I think on some level they're remembering, oh, I'm a soul here. And this is reminding me, this validating that I'm a soul. So I think that's part of that energy that they feel. They get lightened up. They get enlightened. They lighten up. Yeah,
it was so evident last night. It was just so clear.
You see a shift in the crowd. Like when I first got on stage, you never know what the people expect or what they have expectations, of course, and some people are nervous and fearful, and I just go with it. I just surrender. And it's interesting because when we start, the crowd is very, very different to when we end. It's like a whole different room of people at the end. And they're younger. They're more energetic. They're happier. They're fun. And even if you don't get the message, if I have a whole room of people and only do 3 or 4 or 5 messages, specific messages for people in the room, everybody in that room, a room of 200, 300 people, they all get something from that. Sure. They all can feel it and experience that. And it's that connection of the human experience that we share. And they're able to relate to it. So even they don't directly get the message, they can certainly benefit from all the other messages that are given. Yeah.
Our spiritual world, the people that have died in our lifetime, is it true that if we're kind of closed down, they don't come to us? How do you feel about that? Are they still with us all the time, or
they're with us all the time?
Okay.
They don't just lose interest and become
like somebody never answering
their
phone.
Exactly. And people think they become a figment of imagination, and it's not true. The bonds of love that we created with them on the earth continue on. They just stop these bonds of love, and they're very much involved in our everyday lives. Whether it's influencing us or making things happen a little bit, they're kind of the puppet masters, and we become the puppets. And so they're still concerned about us. And it's just us sometimes that close down. Sometimes we're not willing to open up our mind and to see something over here or over here. We want it right in front of us, or want to hit over the head. And it's very subtle. And we just got to be open to the subtleties. And we'll be able to see and hear and feel them more.
Just be attentive and call it in and
be still.
And be open.
Yeah, be still with the mind and let them come to your mind and just be open to those subtle whispers, if you will. Yeah.
Are you always able to hear when you're in public places, or do you have a time that you turn it off? I mean, are you sitting in a restaurant and you see the other people don't see?
Good question, and many people think that. because of misinformation that's been brought out, maybe.
Which is why I wanted you to set the record straight.
I can only speak from my experience as a medium, and my development as a medium for many years, I would sit and learn how to open myself up, whether it's open up the chakra system and opening that up, the awareness up, and do the work. It's almost like a radio station. You turn on the radio and you tune in. And then when I'm finished working, I tune out, I turn down, I bring down my energy, and I lose, if you will, my attention to the other world.
Okay.
So I'm not bombarded by them.
Okay.
And that's really important in developing mediums, that they realize you can't always be open, because it is dangerous in that your adrenal system is being affected. And if you're always on all the time, you can eventually burn out the adrenals. It's like having a ceiling fan. And the ceiling fan, if it's totally on all the time, constantly, it's going to burn out the motor.
Yeah.
So we've got to be very aware of that, and everything in moderation. Okay, sip of water.
You've been doing this 35 years, so...
Yes, I'm old.
No, you're not. You have the energy of someone in their youth.
Yeah. 4 planets in Leo. 4
Me
planets in Leo.
too.
There we go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
The story will continue.
Yes.
What would you say, I know you have thousands and thousands of stories with what you've seen.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh boy.
Or one of many
well,
favorites?
there's one of so many. I mean, I've done so many messages from the spirit world. And then every time it happens, it's a miracle to me. It really is. But one that stands out, probably 2 years ago this happened. I was in Maui and doing an evening of messages. And a little spirit girl, about 3 or 4 years old, came to me and she stood on my left side. And she said, I want to speak to my parents. They're in the back there. And I described the girl, and sure enough, her parents stood up. And a young couple. And she was just, it was really emotional. I said, your daughter's here, and she's saying it's a happy birthday. And they said, it's her birthday today. And
Wow.
the little girl said, Daddy, thank you for the angel wings. Thank you for my angel wings. And he started crying, as we all did. He took off his T-shirt, he turned around, and he had just had a tattoo of his back of 2 big angel wings for his daughter. So that was pretty phenomenal. We were all crying our eyes out. And something like that is just, yeah, that's pretty life-affirming and love-affirming. And, you know, children are the greatest, well, besides animals, children are great communicators because they just speak from love. They don't come from judgment. It's just about love. So that was a great one. Whenever I bring children through, or animals, those are my fun stories, fun times. Love that.
I'm so grateful for the work you're doing, James.
Thank you. Thank you.
So grateful. It's really touching.
Thank you.
Well, don't let the story end here. Go visit James Van Praagh on Google and find out about the different programs that he's offering. And now's the greatest time to do it. You know, mediums are out of the closet. It's now an everyday conversation. And so many of you have gifts out there. Allow them to unfold and let them be validated. It's time. It's time for all of us to step up and stand up for what we believe. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Temple.
Such
Appreciate
a pleasure.
Thank you, sweetheart. Appreciate it.